Welcome to The Week Ahead, broadcasting for the first time in Bukit Jalil. My name is Ibrahim Sani.
And I'm Hafiz Marzuki, broadcasting from the new studio of Astro AWANI, here in Bukit Jalil.
So there's plenty of things to unpack. We'll start with the second phase of the immunization program. Very recently, the Health Minister, Datuk Seri Adam Baba, announced that the second phase of the immunization program will be brought forward from April 19th to April 17th. What is to be expected next week is the ramping up of the initiative to get people to sign up for the immunization program. What must be said is that the target is slightly off because, according to the government, they want to sign up to 9 million people on MySejahtera during the phase 2. However, as of 1st of April, only 7.7 million of Malaysians are registered. This is a shortfall of about 1-something million, and therefore they have to ramp it up in terms of trying to get people to sign up through the MySejahtera app.
Yes, Ibrahim, and based on the numbers that you have said just now, actually 30% are only what you call from the group which has all these comorbidities or elderly, etc., etc. So it is actually far from the government's target of 9.4 million actually of people within this category to be vaccinated during phase 2 of the vaccination. And this is interesting, Ibrahim, because we are looking at the whole vaccination program as it's not like a turn-by-turn basis, right? We got a lot of moving parts and everyone is doing it together. How do you think we will be able to ramp up? In what ways and at what rate can it be ramped up?
I think it has to be on the ground activation. If you think about it, door-to-door activation remains to be the best way moving forward because we are targeting the non-urban setting. We're also targeting senior citizens who might not be familiar with the app. And of course, people like you and me, Hafiz, we now have the option, if you upgrade to the latest My App Sejahtera application, we can now register dependents above 18 years old on the app itself. So those are the kind of ideas that the government can put in place, but the kind of ideas that I think is also making sense. The only problem here is that vaccination, not the vaccines, are going to be a problem in the near term. Remember, only about 600,000 of people have been vaccinated for the first dose, and of that 200,000 have been vaccinated for the second dose. That is still slow by the JKJAV, the Special Committee Announcement standards as of to date. And already they're announcing the phase 2. The only argument here is that if phase 1 vaccination programs are lagging behind and they're rushing phase 2, it's not because they are lacking vaccines, it's the vaccination programs that needs to be ramped up. So that has to be taken care for. Of course, the ministers did say that they want to get more people registered through the app, but at the same time, if they can vaccinate more than 200,000 people up to 400,000 people per day, then that is something that is, needs to be desired of.
And that is the interesting thing, Ibrahim, because we look at, the initial, before the vaccination program started at all, the Health Minister, Datuk Seri Dr. Adam Baba, actually said they are looking at numbers, maybe 6 figures numbers or 5 figures, daily vaccination numbers. And actually, we are far from it. We haven't reached that. And of course, I do understand that right now we are only at, I would say we're still at the infancy stage of our vaccination program because out of 3 phases, only phase 1 is almost done. We still have phase 2, and phase 3 is actually the biggest one where it will involve the most number of people. However, Ibrahim, I think this is where the coordinating minister for the national immunization, COVID-19 immunization program, Kari Jamaluddin, said they want to bring in some economic frontliners forward, which is to actually it will somehow jumble up the system in terms of categorizing who will get to be vaccinated in phase 2 and phase 3, etc., etc. But how do you think this can be systematically included into our national vaccination program?
I don't know, man. To be frank, the conversation that needs to be had for this one has to be further explained by both the minister in charge of the immunization program as well as the health minister himself. But also worth noting that the health minister, speaking about him, he has announced that the vaccination program will continue as usual during the Ramadan period, and that will also continue to uplift some of the numbers in terms of the vaccination immunized or inoculated people in Malaysia. Very recently also, we're going to be expected to allow for Malaysians to travel freely. This is because the Prime Minister has announced that fully vaccinated Malaysians will soon be allowed to travel freely in the country. And this is because the Prime Minister says that the latest international research to the vaccine or on the vaccine indicated that those who have been given 2 doses and certificate is safe to travel anywhere. And I am pretty sure a lot of Malaysians are looking at this news with jubilation or enjoying this particular piece of news. But it's going to take some time for any of us. Hafiz, you and I, we haven't
been vaccinated at all. But the thing is, Ibrahim, just want to chime in here. And it's a very interesting prerequisite, right? Because in the mind of those who are against this vaccine, it's like basically saying you have to stay in your state if you don't want to get vaccinated, right?
Absolutely, man. Okay, one final note before we go into the break. World Health Day, that's happening on the April of 7th.
Yes, next week.
This is a big deal because it has been sanctioned by the World Health Organization, by the United Nations. But Hafiz, you asked me a very pertinent question. Do I even remember World Health Day 2020, a year of the pandemic? And
yes, exactly.
To be honest, no, I don't remember at all.
Yeah, actually, to me personally, I was actually surprised when we were looking through our calendars, just as usual, as part of our week ahead preparation. I was surprised to actually see, 7 April is World Health Day. And in fact, I don't remember a big thing was celebrated last year. And in fact, health is a big thing for the past 2 years, actually, with the advent of COVID-19 and all these talks about health as a pillar has intensified. And I think a lot of our primary healthcare challenges, a lot of how pandemic ready are we, have come into focus. And it is interesting to see that this year World Health Day is actually being given some sort of attention, Ibrahim, because health is very important right now.
It's not just that, also education is a big deal. So I think the big thrust that we need to think about is on the ability for businesses and governments to deal with how dispersion of content can be done through education via the digital means, as well as how healthcare can be delivered to patients all around the world and in Malaysia for the years moving forward. Because if anybody can crack that code of dispersion of both healthcare and education, I think they're going to be able to tap into a market share that has never been seen before. But of course, those are the kind of ideas that is constantly evolving. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll discuss politics in the week ahead. Welcome back. This is the week ahead. I am Ibrahim Sani.
And I'm Hafiz Marzuki.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more politics. Very recently, the Prime Minister has announced that the Malaysia Agreement 1963 will be tabled next week. In fact, PM says that the Council on MA63 will sit to decide on reports, recommendations by working committees. And of course, if you don't know about the Malaysia Agreement 1963, there's a whole host of grievances, both traditional and historical grievances versus modern grievances of both Sabah and Sarawak with the federal government of Malaysia. They stem from anywhere from the involvement of the political parties of Semenanjung entering the politics of Sabah and Sarawak, involve royalty in terms of distribution of wealth and state assets. They also go outright to say that they want a third of the seating inside the parliament. So the whole host of issues that needs to be tabled out and ironed out. The issue here, of course, is that they don't have the numbers. When it comes to ratifying the MA63 and the requirements within it, they are the minority in the parliament and all these committees. So I'm pretty sure that the council or special cabinet council on the Malaysia Agreement 1963, when they do meet next week, what would be some of the conversations that they can share with us, the rakyat?
I mean, it's an endless conversation, right, Ibrahim? If you look at it, and 1963, you have to remember Malaysia Agreement 1963 is basically it's all there. It's in 1963, and we are actually hearing about it, I guess, maybe 5-6 years ago, especially made popular by the late Tan Sri Adnan Satib, which is a former chief minister before Datuk Seri Abang Johari Tun Openg, the current Chief Minister of Sarawak. And it goes to show how much Sarawak actually felt they were neglected. And in this case, of course, I have to also bring Sabah into this conversation, because it also involves both these territories. And you're right, actually, there are a host of things when it comes to representation in parliament, and sometimes representation even at the Dewan Negara level. Because if you look at it, every, I would say, state have an X amount of senators, and it is baffling to hear that Perlis has the same number of representatives in the Dewan Negara as many as Sarawak and Sabah. And it's quite baffling to hear.
And of course, the Prime Minister is doing a back-to-back state visit from Putrajaya to Kota Kinabalu and some areas in Sabah. That was, I think, 2 weeks ago. And of course, last week we saw him visiting Kuching. And of course, these kind of items do appear on those kind of conversations into how the MA63 is going to pan out, the Special Council at least. It is worth noting that officially the Council is going to be talking about issues relating to immigration, national registration, border control, illegal immigrants, and of course encroachment of foreign fishermen into the exclusive economic zone off the shores of Sabah and Sarawak. So those are the kind of ideas that is currently being discussed, at least officially, at the state level when it comes to the MA63 Special Cabinet Council. Also, there's a new recruitment drive by political parties. Last week we saw celebrated people of the arts, Datuk Aflin Shauki, Ultimate, joining the PKR party, or the Justice Party led by Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim. Hans Isaac also announced his entry towards the party some time back. Is this a fresh recruitment drive from PKR trying to get people to get that rah-rah feeling? What do you think of this, Hafiz?
I mean, it makes sense for PKR to go on a recruitment drive, right? Their deputy president, or rather former deputy president, Datuk Sri Azmin Ali, left the party, and he brought away a sizable chunk of the party, no matter how you want to see it. Fact of the matter is, he was influential in PKR. So it is only natural for PKR to go on this recruitment drive. And it is also natural for them to target all these big names, right? As you know, Aflin Shauki and Ultimate are household names. I guess everyone in Malaysia, or almost everyone in Malaysia, have heard of them. And it is very interesting, Ibrahim, is because, of course, Aflin Shauki, he has entered political parties before. I think many years back he has joined UMNO before. But for Ultimate, I find it a little bit more interesting, because I think in his interview he said that it is time for him to actually think beyond himself and think about his children and the country as well. Because he said, as an artist, as a musician, as you know, his genre in music, he felt that he was being self-centered before this, and now is the time for him to enter politics. And it's very interesting, Ibrahim, because I do not know to what extent artists have political clout. Because naturally you would thought if you pick out any artist and put them in, they will be able to take away any seat. But politically speaking, it may not be true.
Name an artist that has won an election. You name it. Come on, I wait. This is a story, right? What's the on-the-ground activation campaign? Just like the vaccine activation program, you can have an app and you can hope for people to sign up on the app. But when the reality translates to the fact that not many people are feeling some sort of affinity towards the app, and you have a low rate of activation through the app, you still have to go through the ground game here. And that's why the political parties that have good ground game, like PAS, like DAP, for instance, like some of the parties in Sabah and Sarawak, they do move more and faster in terms of trying to get more voters to get on their side. So I hope that all the political parties that are currently watching this have a good ground game, failure of which it's towards their peril. Speaking of which, in the middle of last week, the Minister of Technology, and of course the Minister coordinating the program, or immunization program, Kari Jamaluddin, was making an interesting call. That is that he says the UMNO should start the story of the party motion to go for polls, and this is to elect new office bearers. So here's a little bit of context. The previous general election that UMNO did was actually the general election of 2020. It's not the General Assembly, pardon me. the General Assembly of 2020, they haven't really done the General Assembly of 2021, which is going to be the assembly where they do elect their office bearers. But his argument is, instead of doing the selection of the office bearers during the General Assembly of 2021, which is expected to take place either November or December this year, he argues that it should be brought forward even further, which is anytime now, because his argument is he wants to have fresh office bearers, to have a fresh mandate to lead UMNO into the general election, whenever that election is and whenever it is to be called. But there is also an argument that within the constitution of UMNO, they can actually postpone the election of office bearers up to 18 months. This is within the UMNO constitution. So technically, they don't even have to have an election or a poll within the UMNO office bearers kind of structure, not until early 2023. So that is the context of this debate.
Yes.
Now, whether or not it has received with a resounding kind of approval remains to be seen.
But you can hear, other leaders within UMNO, especially the former Secretary General Tan Sri Anwar Musa. He also posted in Facebook, I believe, last week, if I'm not mistaken, it's on Thursday night, which he said that it is time for UMNO to actually return to the grassroots and gain a new mandate in terms of putting forth a new Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister candidate. Traditionally, UMNO has always been the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister candidate comes from the President and Deputy President. So he said he was suggesting for them to do the same. And we are going to keep a close eye on this, because I believe I do not think the current UMNO leadership is thinking about their party polls. They are thinking, they are having their eyes on the GE15, Ibrahim.
Fantastic. Those are the kind of conversations that are currently taking place, and in the week ahead, of course, we want to discuss the kind of things that might be interesting to you or might be of interest for you. So hit us up on our social sites, make us be aware of the kind of things that you want us to talk about. So far, we've had a very interesting conversation with some of our followers online, and remember, you can reach out to us through the Twitter handle that you see down here below. But until then, that's all that we have for this episode. Until we catch you again in the week ahead. Take care.
Bye-bye.